Welcome to Table Salt. We're doing week 4 of the last 24, where we're taking a deep dive into the last 24 hours of Christ. And this week's sermon, we talked about the sentencing of Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible story, incredible sermon, because you guys do this rhetorical trick.
Feels like a little bait and switch.
Yeah.
A little, right?
It was masterful.
Yeah.
It was masterful.
It's good, yeah.
Yeah, it was very good. So
Yeah.
if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's this point in the sermon where we're talking about Jesus is standing in front of the crowds, and Pilate is there, and he's like, "Who do you want me to crucify? Jesus Barabbas or Jesus Christ?"
Yeah, yeah.
And they're like, "Or who do you want me to let go? Who do you want us to let go?
Yeah.
Jesus Barabbas or
Yeah.
Jesus Christ?" And they're like, "Barabbas,
Give us Barabbas."
give us Barabbas."
Yeah.
And then you say, and you can feel super justified.
Yeah.
Because you think, oh man, they're terrible. They pick blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Who would ever do that? What's wrong with these people?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then you like sucker punch us. And what is the switch? What's the turn here?
Well, when you read something like that, even the Bible draws you in a little, where you read it and you're like, how in the world could they let this happen to Jesus? What's wrong with these people? How do they not see it? How do they not know that this man isn't the Son of God? And they're demanding that Barabbas be let go. And you start to identify with Jesus a little bit, right?
Yeah.
You're like, this is an innocent guy that is suffering here. And I think everybody watching online has experienced some kind of injustice along the way where, you were blamed for something that wasn't your fault, where, something was taken from you, something was blamed on you, whatever. You start to identify with Jesus a little, and you're like, I too know what it's like for this sort of thing to happen. But the truth is, when you read that portion of the scriptures, it's not Jesus that we should be identifying with here. We're way more like Barabbas.
Right.
Like we are Barabbas in the story.
Plot twist.
Yeah.
Plot twist, you're the criminal.
Yes.
You're the criminal in this story. You're sitting here being sympathetic to the hero of the story, when in reality, you're the thief.
And I feel like we do that all the time when we read the Bible, or I tend to at least, is I read myself into the hero of the story. I read myself into like the heroicism. When you read David and Goliath, you're like, I have giants to slay too. There's things in my life that I need to conquer and beat. And newsflash, man, you are not the hero of the story.
You're Goliath.
You're way more like Goliath,
You're
right?
not Daniel, you're the lion.
Exactly. You're way more like the one that's opposing God's plan.
You're not Moses, you're Pharaoh.
Exactly, dude. It's the truth, yeah.
I don't remember seeing that on the felt board.
That was not in the old Baptist church felt board, right?
Yeah. That's crazy. But there it seems like if you think about it too much, that you look at this story and you say God chooses to do a really terrible thing for our benefit.
Yeah.
How do you address that?
So we'll just call spade a spade here. Are you touching on, like, why does God allow the innocent to suffer? Well, why do bad things happen to good people?
That's the ultimate, like, where it goes. Did it have to be?
Appreciate you asking that, Rocky, with our 10 minutes that we've got here.
Yeah.
That is like the
youngest teaching pastor.
I know,
That's
seriously.
what I've asked, yeah.
That is the question. Like, entire libraries have been written on that. So to me, there's like the two most important questions. One sort of leads to the other, but most important question is, who do you say Jesus is? To me, that's like, you got to figure that one out. And the second, I feel like everybody, regardless of religion, regardless of where you're at in the world, whether you believe in God or not, you will ask, why is there suffering around me? Why do bad things happen to good people?
Yeah.
And it's a great question. It's a really hard question, and I feel like it is the trump card in some ways for those that don't believe in God. They feel like they can kind of lay that one down as if God was real, if God was out there, if God was all-knowing, all-powerful, if he was all these things, then surely he wouldn't let that sort of thing happen, especially to those that he loves. And the Bible answers that. I feel like the Bible hits that head on in a lot of places, but it is not that. It is more interested, I feel like, in answering something a little different. So we're going to take a roundabout way to answer this question.
Let's go.
All the questions about why bad things happen to good people typically start with the assumption that there are good people.
Right.
Right? That we kind of put God on trial for these different injustices that happen around us, these different bad things that happen, because, we know somebody that's really good, or we did all the right things and a bad thing happened to us. But
or cancer children.
Yes, things like that. It's like, what? This is terrible. What's going on here? You start to shake your fist at God a little bit. You've been slacking on the job. The Bible doesn't talk about people being good. The assumption, why do bad things happen to good people? The Bible doesn't talk about humanity in a way that's like we are righteous and good and virtuous and noble. No. The way the Bible talks about us is that we are morally bankrupt, that we have zero virtue, that our righteousness is filthy rags, that we are as broken and sinful as it gets. And that wasn't God's fault.
Right.
That was our fault. In the very beginning, the garden, the betrayal of God's design of things, choosing our way. From the very beginning, we've been passed on a sin nature from our first parents, right? So at our core, we're not good. The question shouldn't be, why me, really? It should look more like, why not me?
Yeah, not like, why do bad things happen to good people, but why do good things happen to bad people?
To me, that's the better question.
Yeah.
And if you're a Christian, it's awesome because you can wrestle with the problem of evil, but what you don't have to wrestle with is the problem of good.
Yeah.
That to me is that's a more interesting argument there, is when you don't believe in God, or if you're on the side that says that, God is absent, not real, out there, off doing whatever. You have to ask yourself, why does good exist? Because I feel like we have an answer for why evil exists. And we can make a pretty compelling argument for why good is there as well.
So why does a good God allow his son to be falsely accused, beaten, imprisoned, tortured, crucified?
Yeah. This is
why. How is that good?
Yeah, we're like funneling right into this from what we just talked about. Is so there is no good person. That's not a thing, but there was one.
Yeah,
and the literal only good person to ever live submitted himself to death. Didn't have his life taken, willingly gave his life up, because the wrath and the justice of God had to be satisfied. Somebody had to pay. We've talked about this on this podcast before, but we talked about how sin requires a payment. Blood has to be shed in order for there to be forgiveness. And I'm willing to revisit that one altogether if we want to. I don't know if we have time, but God did that for us.
Right.
The beauty of this whole thing, it's like God, you talk bait and switch, turns this whole thing upside down. Yeah, we should have suffered. Yeah, we should have been the ones that were on the chopping block. So funny, like we shake our fist at God about why there's evil in the world. It's like the man who kills his mother and father and then throws himself on the mercy of the court for being an orphan. It's like, this is your fault. The reason why you're in this predicament, the reason why nature is as corrupted as it is, the way the economy works, the way that bad habits are formed, the evil around us, it all starts with that one decision in the garden.
Yeah.
And we're reaping the repercussions of that. We have no way to save ourselves aside from the mercy of God. And when we were at our most helpless, God was at his greatest. That's why we have the cross. Somebody had to pay. And God decided there's no way they can foot the bill.
Yeah.
Like, this one's up to me.
So going back to the story of Barabbas and being set free, I mean, the analogy is there. Jesus is taking the penalty as the innocent one so that the guilty one walks free. And for us, that's good news.
The best news. Yeah. Yes, the best news. And living that out, we tend to make that a lot more difficult as it is. Like, as a pastor, Rocky, you probably have people ask you all the time, like, how do I live this thing out? Do I need a stage and a microphone?
Yeah.
Do I need to start a, Christian business, or do I need to draw a little Jesus fish on everything that I do? But the truth is, it's way more simple to live this out than we think. It's like, whatever arena God has placed you in, if it's being a great father, if it's being a great businessman, if it's treating people fairly, whatever, you can live this out in ways that don't require a stage and a microphone. This good news that we've heard.
If you make the decision to live every day as if though you have won the grace lottery, and just respond with gratitude.
You got it.
In that truth every day.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it can make a big difference. Why would a good God send people to hell?
Oh, well, we really want to go there with 3 minutes left?
I mean,
I'm willing to do it.
People are asking.
I'm willing to do it.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Okay. Somebody has to pay.
I mean, this is it. This is the shot, right?
What it boils down to.
This is why people always argue. They're not arguing the existence of God. They're arguing the goodness of God.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But they're doing it in such a way that gives them the moral high ground, because we want to say that the goodness of God is not measured by God as a moral standard, but a man as a moral standard. And so it would definitely be wrong if I sent someone to hell.
Sure.
So it must also be wrong if God is sending people to hell.
Yeah. Okay. We've talked about this before. I'm going to use a similar example as what we talked about. This is probably a year ago that we addressed this, but to me, it's just such a simple way of sort of breaking this down. But, we agreed somebody has to pay in order for there to be forgiveness. In order for justice to be served, whether it's, somebody took your bike, there has to be a replacement for that, or somebody stole something from your home. There's got to be a replacement, or somebody has to pay for the wrong that's happened here. When you commit an offense against an infinite, holy God, an eternal God, no matter how small or how large, somebody has to pay the price for that. And the way that we look at our sin a lot of times is just like, what if I live 80 years worth of a sinful life? Is that seriously deserving of an eternity in hell? That doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem fair.
Right.
But look at it like this, look at one offense extrapolated against different levels of authority and dignity. This is what we've talked about previously. It's like if you get angry one day and you punch a wall, you got to replace the hole in the wall, right?
Right.
You've got to do something about that. If you are walking in your neighborhood one day and you get mad because somebody's out walking their cat and you hate cats and you punch the cat, well, you're going to have to deal with the owner, right? Owner's going to be pretty angry. You're going to have to somehow make that right. Let's say the owner smarts off at you and you punch the owner. Well, it's the same offense that you did against the wall, that you did against the cat. Now that you've done it against the owner, well,
now it's assault.
Now it's assault, right?
Yeah.
We've kind of upped the ante here. Okay, well, police show up. They're not happy. You punch a police officer, man, you could find yourself in prison for a long time.
And now it's a felony.
It's not
misdemeanor assault.
Exactly.
It's a felony
okay,
now.
So bump it up a little. You get angry at all these injustices that have happened along the way to you, and you punch the President of the United States or the Queen of England. Something worse than jail may happen. Yeah. Death may happen, It's the same offense, but against these different levels of dignity, it warrants the punishment for the crime. Now, if you take an offense and you do it against an infinitely holy, endless, perfect God, somebody has to pay. And it's not just I did my 80 years here. It is an eternal crime. It's something that, because of who the being is, the level of dignity, somebody's got to pay. It's got to be an eternal punishment. Right. And what God did for us is he paid the bill. He said, you can lay Jesus' righteousness over you. And this is going to be your entrance into heaven. This is going to be the forgiveness of your sin, the propitiation, the payment for your sins. But without that, you can choose to pay yourself. But that's where it lands you, is separated from the presence of God, right, without the covering of the blood of Jesus. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a hard truth. It's really hard.
Why is that such a stumbling block for people?
Well, I mean, I feel like for us, we have such a misguided view of fairness. You know, we think to ourselves, well, that's not fair. But what's crazy to me is like, you don't want what's fair.
Right.
Like if fair was the case, none of us would be here. You know, we'd all be toast. I think within us, we just have this natural feeling of like, we want to be the ones to be judge, jury, executioner. We decide. We want to be God. We decide who gets in, who doesn't. God just has a different standard in a different way, man. It's his way.
Well, I appreciate your thoughts, your insights. Thank you for your time
It's a
today,
toughie,
Pastor.
man.
Yeah, great sermon, though. You guys did a good job putting that one together. If you haven't watched the sermon yet, I would encourage you to go to our YouTube channel, check it out. Last 24, week 4.
Yeah.
You're going to really enjoy it, be challenged by it, because there's a great story about how you've been set free because Christ took the penalty, and that changes everything.
Yeah.
If you'd like to have more conversations about eternity or heaven or hell, want to ask questions, want to yell at me and tell me I'm an idiot, whatever you want to do, reach out to us. We'd love to have those conversations with you. You can text the phrase Sea Life Connect to 31996 and make an appointment to have a Zoom call with me face to face. I'd love to see it. I'll talk to you guys later. We love you guys.